today we're going to speak about these hybrid-funded projects you're working on. And maybe you can tell us more about what these projects are, what is the concept, and later we'll see who are the stakeholders and the ones you currently work on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you for the question. As you said, we are the Center of Partnerships for Development, and what we do is develop partnerships of private sector, governments, international organizations, and NGOs to develop development projects that have a maximum impact on development goals. Through this process, we have seen a very increasing trend in creating hybrid funding models, whether it's on the form of incubation funds, facilities, to promote entrepreneurship and innovation on different projects. And we have seen how development agencies and the traditional donors of the sector feel much more comfortable with these hybrid solutions of co-funding. First of all, they attract much more capital, and there's much more funds coming from different partners. Second of all, as there are different partners in a new government structure, all of them control each other, so there's better accounting and better transparency on management. And then there's a concept of scalability. As more money comes in and more players are engaged, there's much more impact, and the potential of replication of projects is much higher.
All right. So what are these stakeholders you're talking about? You have donor agencies, traditional donors, such as World Bank or bilateral donors and so on. Do you have private sector organizations involved, like large corporations? And then local NGOs? How does it work?
Exactly. Normally we have, in the one side, international organizations, United Nations agencies, the World Bank and the development banks specifically. They are very relevant in order to put the seed money to develop these structures. Jointly with bilateral agencies, and we would have like the national bilateral development agencies who are also crucial at the beginning, especially to attract some money. Then we have private companies that are engaged whether through investment funds or through their CSR fund departments, or sometimes to foundations, but they also put seed money in order to launch it. It's very important to engage the local government of the emerging and developing countries in order to have a broader buy-in and have more impact with the development impact we want to achieve. And then NGOs or social organizations that could be in the form of local universities also, or development NGOs that work with the sector. So basically, at the end we realize there's space for everybody. The only thing is all of them have to change slightly the way they have been working until now, because working on these hybrid governance systems require adapting to a new model of doing development, a new style, and working more in partnerships and working always with a very focused, strategic focus approach on results management driven.
Okay, so basically those alliances, you're saying they have a governing board that is more coordinated, or just every stakeholder has its say in how it should be implemented. What would be the indicators to measure impact and everything? So,
exactly.
Do you think it's better managed than traditional aid projects? How does it go?
It's hard to say depending on the project. I think that at the longer term it's much better managed because it requires much more transparency, much more result-driven approach. You have to put results on the table, if not partners are going to leave. And a lot of transparency in terms of how the accounts are being managed, if not partners are going to leave.
Yeah.
So let's say it's much more complex in terms of how we relate to each other and how we manage the project, because especially at first, because it requires much more effort of aligning interest in common goals. But once you get it right, the scalability and the impact is much higher, and partners feel much more comfortable in this kind of systems that driving their funds alone with other groups in a bilateral way, which they're more vulnerable to either corruption or not having impact on results.
All right. Okay, and at GlobalCAD, what exactly do you do in this process, and what type of projects you're working on?
Yes, in GlobalCAD we are a development center that creates the articulation of these projects. We come in as brokers of the process, as designers a lot of times, like any agency would hire us, from the whole value chain approach, how to articulate and create the project, how to engage the partners. We also develop the access to fund approach. We identify partners through stakeholder mapping, and we make sure they bring in money to the process. Once the governance system is created and the project starts ongoing, we act as brokers. We kind of moderate the process. If there's tension or there's problems among them, we intervene. We have a whole monitoring system approach that controls the whole implementation through the processes. And finally, we also intervene on the evaluation of its impacts and decide whether that partnership has had success and it should be closed because they achieved the goals, or it should continue in another form to upscale or replicate its results. And we've done this type of projects from the World Bank, from different UN agencies, for hybrid groups, like for example the Business Innovation Development Facility, which we're now developing in Colombia, Zambia, Mozambique, and Bangladesh. So really what we have seen, and that's part of the reason why we've been growing in our implementation, is that ODA and the development sector is tending towards this format. I think that the sector has changed a lot in the last 6 years. We've seen many changes, and I think this has created a new trend on how to do business, a new trend on how to have impact on development, and a new trend that what we have seen is no way back to the old-fashioned style. We need to work more together, using better funds and increasing better the impact.
Well, Fernando Casado, thanks so much for speaking with us today. It was really insightful, and hope to see you soon implementing impactful projects there in the field.
Thank you very much to Devex and to the whole team.
Thanks.